AI has a lot of potential for both good and evil.
The open AIs in the world and the AI companies in this world are essentially transhumanists. They would like AI to become God. I think it's a people problem that we have this. Just like everything. Is it bad that we develop technologies and guns, right? Probably the same thing. We can now shoot people from, half a mile away with snipers. Like it's incredible things that are more intelligent than like lots of people. I mean, really, it's really so people saying AI is the Antichrist.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Cash Flow Conversations, where we interview entrepreneurs on their journey from W 2 employee to 1099 entrepreneur. Who on earth would want to take on that stress and responsibility? But today I have a pretty cool guest. He's only 19 years old. I still don't think that he owns a razor. He does not have to shave his face, but he's
So you can see I have razor bump right here, bro. I clearly did this morning.
It's great. So, but I love what he's doing. He's doing business with AI. And if you know anything, unless you've been under a rock, you know that AI is taking over right now. And literally it changes week to week on what's available and what people are doing. So today I want to get some clarity on what AI can do for people, how our guest, Gray Mitchell, is going to be using it for his clients, and how we can implement it into our businesses. So, Gray, it's good to have you here, and I'm excited to talk about all things AI.
I appreciate you having me, Matt. When you told me that we should do this, I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be fun to talk where AI intersects with investing in personal growth and just journey on entrepreneurship. So
Yeah, because there's a lot of negative stigma around AI as well. If you talk to my parents or some other people out there, they might not be as excited about some of the capabilities because it does pose a lot of danger. But we're going to get into all that. First, I want to talk about how on earth a 19-year-old decided to start their own business.
hmm
I don't think he went to college.
I did not. I'm not in college.
So we're going to talk about how does this even happen? Because most people your age are just trying to figure out who they are in the world. And a lot of people end up defaulting to college and have no idea what they're going to do when they get out, but it becomes this like blur for 4 or 5 years. You know, if you take the fifth year, you take your victory lap, but it becomes this blur for people where they just get to delay these life choices. So how did you even get started in the entrepreneurial world? I think it was like 4 years ago is when you got started, right?
Yeah. So I started my first business like 3.5-ish, 4 years ago, I guess. I guess it was 2022. So I was 15. So I just was turning into a sophomore in high school. And what happened was I don't even remember what I was doing, just high school things. But I was scrolling on TikTok. This was when I really first started, I guess, kind of going after my own goals. A few months before that, I decided I wanted to be a pilot. I actually started doing pilot training lessons. Um, and so,
Like a
but I was
commercial
going,
airline pilot?
yeah, I wanted to be that's actually interesting. Most people don't know that about me. I wanted to be a pilot. Actually bought all the pilot training stuff and started just going through all the courses and trying to get my private pilot's license so that I could at some point. I don't remember how the whole process went, but I could at some point graduate and be an airline pilot. But I'm so grateful that didn't happen because I cannot sit still. Matt knows this about me. I cannot sit still at all. And so, hearing Gray's going to be an airline pilot and sit on, flights for 10 hours. No, no way. No way. Oh my gosh, that would have been terrible. But I remember one day I was scrolling on TikTok, whatever, high schoolers do, and I came across some drop shipping videos, and I thought, I wonder if I could sell a product like this. And you remember that's kind of there was an online trend at the time where online business was getting popular, kind of escaping the normal. They call it the rat race, right? Escaping the normal 9 to 5. This was getting really popular as among teenagers, and so
Everybody thought they're going to be a millionaire drop shipping.
yeah, everybody thought it was. But during this whole movement, I started dropshipping. I actually got really lucky or really blessed. I don't know, one of the two. But I got I my first product, it was a digital fingerprint lock. I'm trying to figure out if I have it on my desk. I don't. I keep it somewhere that I can remember it. But I had a digital. It was basically use your fingerprint to unlock the lock, and it was just a padlock that you could put on your locker. You could put it on like a fence, on storage, whatever it was, right? And so kids thought it was the coolest thing because you could have your fingerprint locker and flex on all your other kids who have like a normal, like they're dialing the lock to try to get it undone.
Ew, I remember those days. You had to turn the knob.
Yeah. Yeah, now you just tap it with your finger. So anyway, I that was my first product I sold and it went pretty viral. So anyway, I was getting, a couple 100,000 views on every video, and towards the end, and then getting, had a couple videos that would get in the millions of views and stuff. And so I was starting to get a number of sales from it. And so I guess I got my first little taste of a win. Now, here's the thing. I don't think I didn't understand any business principles at the time, right? So I basically got lucky. So I didn't make hardly any money because I sold, I don't remember how many units I sold, but I didn't even do dropshipping. I literally ordered, because I didn't even know what dropshipping was when I started. I ordered a bunch of product from Alibaba to my house, and I would go after school and I would put them in these envelopes. I actually found a video the other day of me doing this. I would put them in these envelopes and I would literally write the address handwritten. I wouldn't even put a label on it. I would just write out the address. And then I would go take it to the post office right after school every day. I think my mom still took me because I couldn't even drive yet. My mom would take me to the post office. Oh, wow, that's crazy. I didn't even realize I couldn't even drive yet. I couldn't even drive yet. So my mom would take me to the post office. I would sell the orders. And the lady kept, I would come day after day. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm selling these products online." She thought it was the coolest thing. But anyway, so I got lucky. I didn't understand profit margins at all, but so I didn't really make any real money. I do remember I bought a watch or something with the little money I made at 15.
Nice.
Um, yeah, that was essentially how I got my start. Before that, I did work. My dad kind of opened up an opportunity for me to work at the company he worked at, where I could fulfill labels and stuff. So I was starting day one when I was 11 years old, just slapping labels and fulfilling orders and stuff. So I did have my. I guess I didn't go completely without my W-2 season. I don't. I mean, I guess it was a part-time job whenever it got legally old enough to do it. But I think the year I started dropshipping was the last year. I remember listening to all kinds of entrepreneurship podcasts while I was there working and just going, I need to be done with this. I need to start my own thing. I need to start my own thing. So that was kind
So
of how
you've
I got
never
my
had
start.
a weekly paycheck, I don't think, ever since.
Yeah, I haven't had a paycheck since I was working in the summers and on breaks and stuff at fulfilling orders.
So
Um,
you start the locks with drop shipping. You realize that probably has some sort of ceiling fulfillment in your life. Selling locks doesn't really get us out of bed in the morning. So what happens next?
Well, it wasn't even that. It's just that, I actually had, as soon as the product blew up, I had, a million competitors and everybody was copying my product. That was the drop shipping nature, right? And there were so many people trying to do it that it made it impossible to really long term, unless you built a legit e-commerce brand and, kind of built some unique factor into your own product. Basically, if it had mass distribution and e-commerce, like if you could go in China and get the exact same thing, you weren't going to be able to sell it, because you either had to have some kind of brand reputation or you had to have a unique product or something, that some kind of value proposition why people would spend more money on your thing as opposed to going to Alibaba when they're buying the same thing for cheap.
Yeah.
So that started to get popular. People, would go on TikTok and just say, just get this here on Alibaba. You don't need to buy, you don't need to spend twice the price to get a dropship product. But obviously you're paying for the it's really the marketing proposition of what you're selling. But anyway, so I thought, I thought about what could I do next, and so I ended up starting through a number of series of events. I kind of rotated from thing to thing to thing, but I kind of found myself in a cold email agency because I had all these people reaching out to me as I was trying to get clients for different agencies and things I was trying to start. I had clients reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, or people just on Slack, on Discord, on whatever communities say, hey, could you get us booked appointments for our company? Like I see that you're getting all these booked appointments for the thing you're doing." So I started essentially just booking appointments for other companies. And then lo and behold, cold email got really popular and then really spammy and developed a really bad reputation. So I had a habit of jumping on the trends right before they got big. And now we're here in AI, right?
I got a master's in architecture the same year that the housing market collapsed.
Really?
Yeah, timing hasn't been my thing all.
Yeah, so I started drop shipping and then it blew up. I start I started a cold email agency, and about 6 months later, everybody became a go to market GTM, right? Cold email, outbound, LinkedIn sales, whatever it was, right? Selling through essentially outbound appointments. The way we tried to do it was through positioning partnerships, because nobody likes to get like salesy spam emails in their inbox. Way of writing copy, and I think I got pretty good at writing copy, and I understood the email deliverability really well, and I understood how to land in people's inboxes in a way where they would be interested in partnering with the company as opposed to going, which would actually turn out to be greater than just, hey, buy my service, and you're trying to sell that through cold email. It's obviously these are things we know now, but that's what everybody at the time was trying to do, is sell through cold email. Like, hey, buy my $2,000 a month service, and you get 100 of those emails a day. Nobody's buying anything. And in fact, nobody likes, unless it's coming from any kind of work you're already doing, nobody wants to get an email from anybody they don't know anymore. Anyway, I did that, and then I think I did that for around a year and a half. And then around a year and a half later, maybe it was 2024. Yeah, it was 2024. In 2024, I was having good success. I worked for a number of different work with a number of different of sizable companies like fulfillment.com. At that point, I worked with Integrity, and so like I'd work with some decent players just by building connections and such. But I ended up automating. I wasn't a big believer in AI at the time. Actually, I totally thought it's cool. It's very cool. The year I started entrepreneurship is really when it got popular. ChatGPT got popular. I thought this is cool. Obviously, it's going to change things, but I think it's a little overhyped. That was my thesis until 2024 when I automated my agency with AI. I literally trained AI to do everything that I did in the business. I spent 6 months, literally 12 hours a day, learning development skills. And before I couldn't even build a Zapier workflow, and then by the end of it was just coding, end all the way to coding and just developing skill sets on how to program. And then now, since AI programming has gotten popular, but I ended up automating my entire agency, and it was getting 10 times the results that I could get before because I was able to customize the email. So I was able to research all the people. So like Matt, I would know for you, if I was going to sell you on something, I would position a partnership. Hey, we have a tax strategy business, and we know that you are an expert in cash flow and how to position your wealth with life insurance and taxes and all that stuff. We want to propose a partnership to you, and I could make those emails really custom. So I would know like how many kids you have and like your dog and all the things, where you live, all kinds of creepy information that was available on the internet. And so I could take that information, also take your company pain points. So if you worked as a CMO of a major organization, let's say you worked as the CMO at Apple or something, I would go, okay, right now Apple's really struggling with their software, just for example, right? They're really good at hardware, but they're struggling right now with AI. They can't, they're just trying to figure out what avenue they want to stay in long term. So I would like use these little things that I would know about you and your specific business to actually pair the right opportunity it was essentially like an algorithm, right? That would sort you, oh, this company and this person needs to connect. So it's pretty cool. And it got really good results. And then I had a bunch of companies basically reaching out saying, hey, how about you come build this thing for us? And I started doing that and found I really enjoyed that more. And so now for, I guess, another year and a half, right? So we're coming into February. So pretty much latter half, end of 2024, all the way through 2025, and now into this year, I've been building custom AI systems for businesses. So that's essentially how I got my start and how I got to where I am today.
So you started, excuse me, with locks, and you learned what margins were. Then you went to email, and you realized how to market and how to be
Mhm.
custom with messaging. Now you've
Exactly.
learned how to let AI customize probably the research side, and then create the messaging around the research that it does on its own, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did, and then I realized how powerful AI was as a whole, and then the last, kind of year and a half, I've, really crafted my skill set of figuring out how to train AI on processes to do repetitive tasks, to do things that cost complex cognitive load, so things that cost you a lot of mental tax. So decision making, I figured out how to build. I built a bunch of systems for those things, and then I've sold them to lots of different companies in different industries. That's kind of how I honed in my skill set to where it was today. But it started through the marketing side, and kind of landed in. I'm actually not a huge. I could be deadly if I need to, but I'm not a huge marketing guy. I don't love marketing. I'm good at really fixing processes and helping businesses make more money, get rid of stupid things that they have to do, and really save a ton of time.
Well, I think you're bringing clarity to the marketing that people already are doing. Like, any business has to have some sort of marketing, or they're not going to be able to make it work. But you learn how to customize it using these tools, which, I mean, talk about the right place, right time at your age with this technology. It fit perfectly. Before we dive into the AI stuff even more, give me an idea. What kind of reaction did you get from, your peers and your family when you started doing all this? Was there pushback, or were they excited for you? Did they say, don't do it, go to college?
It was a mix, but mostly. So at first, it was like a joke. Oh, Gray's joining the drop shipping trend because every kid in the school wanted to do that, right? Or every kid would have loved the idea to start a drop shipping business. Now, taking action is a different thing. So at first, it was like, oh, he's doing part of this drop shipping trend. Then it was kind of, oh, what's this? Gray and his little business. So
It's
I did
just
get made fun of a lot in high school, actually. And then at a certain point, yes, I mean, it really there was a lot of jerks. But and then at a certain point, it like I guess the tables kind of flipped. At some point I just stopped caring. And then I stopped going to school full. I started going to school part time. Um, and then I had a lot of towards the and the my last years of high school whenever people finally matured and me as well too because I was very immature. There was actually just a lot of support. But I mean, obviously, I went to a very academic school. I went to a classical school, so the people who there definitely was a little bit of a bias, right? So the kids were going to all kinds of trying to get in their Ivy League school, trying to get in their just trying to get the best college, trying to prep for college the best. I mean, that was every kid thinking.
traditional school teaches you that the next successful step is going to college
Exactly.
or graduating college.
Yeah, so obviously, like the teachers didn't. Some teachers thought it was cool. I had one teacher who was rather pretty entrepreneurial. He thought it was. He and I always he connect. We almost connected. We almost became friends, really. And then I had another. I had other teachers that less so. Thought it was cool. So there
Yeah.
was there was some comments. There was some looks when you were around the room and you said like, "Are you what college are you going to?" I'm like, "I'm not going to college." Sometimes the looks were negative. And then with my parents too. I mean, when I started my business, I told my parents, I'm not going to college. I'm just like, you can't make me. That sounds like, I mean, I'd rather be homeless. I don't want to go to college. I'll sit on side of the Starbucks and beg. This is not what I want to do. I just can't. I can't sit still. I can't even do this for a full day. I was the year I started high school. I was miserable. The year I started entrepreneurship, I could not sit. I could not sit still. I would wake up and this is no joke. I would wake up 2:30 to 3 a.m. in the morning and work till 6 a.m. on just trying to figure something out. And then I would go to school, come home, work, go to sleep at like 7 and do it again. So it was I definitely went I tried all kinds of different schedules and then every time I would sit in class, I was like, this is terrible. And I would already feel like my day is supposed to be done by the time I got to school. So it, and then
Well, I think the blessing there too is that you learned quickly what you didn't want, which is equally, if not more valuable than learning what you do want. As young people, we get so persuaded by the people that we love and that we surround ourselves with of what we think is supposed to be successful. And we do end up doing things for them rather than for ourselves. And it's a life lesson because you're going to learn eventually that you got to live life for yourself and not what somebody else wants you to do. Otherwise, you're going to set yourself up for a miserable existence. And a lot of people
absolutely
don't go through that until their 30s or 40s, and it's called a midlife crisis. I mean, they have a name for it.
right.
There's a good quote that I heard the other day. It was like, in the beginning, they're going to ask you why you work so long and so hard and so many hours, and then afterwards, they're going to say, "Well, don't forget how lucky you got."
Mm,
So everyone is going to discount all of the things and the headaches
that's
that you went
true.
through.
When you say that, that actually that
Of course, people are very willing to discount the hard work and the creativeness that it takes to be an entrepreneur. And most of the time, people don't want to see you succeed more than they are. And at 19 years old, I can't imagine the mockery that you went through and having people that you thought you liked ridicule you to no end and laugh because you're not going to college as if college is going to be some ticket to success or happiness.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was. I mean, it wasn't fun. Obviously, I do remember there was actually a pretty rough period in high school where I was like, "This sucks. I don't like anyone. I don't have any more friends. I lost all my friends." What is it? But then I think that was. But then it got better. There was a hump that I got over. It wasn't through all of high school. It was maybe and everybody was maturing, right? So you went from literally being kids
Yeah.
to being literally adults by the end of it. And so there was a phase in the middle where that was rough, but then after that phase, it kind of it got much better. So, it ended up not being the last year was I had a lot of support, had a lot of great people in my circle. So a lot of people thought it was cool. So it wasn't bad throughout the entire part, but there was definitely a season where it was pretty rough. And a lot of the people actually ended up leaving who were the people who were jerks. They didn't stick around.
I wonder where they are now.
At
Maybe
the
they'll
school.
listen to the podcast.
That's rough. And then going on to the parent thing now. My parents actually told me when I told them I'm not going to college, they said basically, "Yeah, you are. You're going to college. Like you're gonna go to college." I was like, "All right. I guess by the time I graduate high school, I'm gonna have to just run away because I'm because I'm not doing that." So they're like, "He'll change his mind. It's a season. It's a season." But then, but then after about a year and a half, my parents started. My dad really started to see. My parents really started to see. And I mean, I remember when we would go on car trips, we would just talk about it for an hour. We'd argue about it for an hour about going to college. And I would just say, like, Mom, Dad, like there's some things, there's some things that are changing. there's something there. I respect that there's lots of wisdom. There's still things. We still have conversations. Great. Just wait till you get older. You'll get the wisdom. I get it. That happens. And then I go, yep, you're right. You're right, mom and dad. You're right. Yep. I know. I know. But then, other things, there's definitely like, I know I'm pretty set on this one. And there's a reason why I'm pretty set on this one. And so actually kind of went from, no, you're going to college to, now when somebody says, hey, is your kid going, why is your kid not going to college? My dad's like, "Oh, excuse me, my kid does not need to go to college. Let me tell you about my kid. It's such an awesome switch up, right? Um,
That's a true advocate.
yeah, I know, right? So they're great advocates for me now. But it started because they were opponents to the idea. Now they advocate for me. So
I think parents by nature want to see their kids succeed and not
yeah,
struggle too much.
yeah,
College is looked at as this ticket that's going to, once you have a degree, you'll be successful. But dude, that was 30, 40 years ago. Even when I went to college, it wasn't a ticket, a free ride. When I graduated, it was the beginning of the 2008 recession. My friends weren't getting jobs. Nobody had a job. Everybody had a degree, no jobs on the market. These
degrees and
were,
no jobs. Yeah.
and these were architects. The housing market collapsed. Nobody was hiring. You're going to be a draftsman. I bet you 80% of the people I graduated with got out of architecture within the next 2 years of graduating.
Well, I think that it's the internet that changed. It's the internet that kind of made college outdated, because you can learn anything now. You can learn any skill set. And I think it's kind of going to be the same switch with AI, that some other things are going to change. I don't know what they are yet, but I think other things are going to change.
Let's dive into the AI because we went through the mom and dad. Mom and dad are now advocates for you. They believe in what you're doing. They know that you can succeed doing this on your own terms. So they're excited for you. And my gosh, I hope that you relish in that feeling because I know you're not a parent yet, but their pushback came from a place of love, not direction. Like they wanted to
Yeah.
see you succeed. So it's a cool place to be in. And at 19 years old, it's incredible. But you mentioned to me once before about going through this near death experience. You want to touch on that?
This is a good topic. Um, I know you recently became a believer, Matt. We
Yeah.
we talked about that. It's awesome. I'm Matt and I have been talking a lot. It's been awesome for us to touch on God and touch on our journeys. And so I actually uh, I don't know if I've talked about this on a podcast yet, but around a year and a half ago, I think it was around the time that I built the system that automated my agent. I'm convinced a good part of that was really God giving me certain intuition that I didn't have before, because it really happened after this experience. Um, I had a potential client. This is not my best moment as a high schooler. I had a potential client. I was getting a good amount of referrals, and people would hit me up. Hey, you know what? Um, a company reach out to me that sold supplements. Right. Well, the supplement was actually like weed mixed with like a ton of other crazy stuff. Just I don't even remember what was all in there, but it was definitely not legal. Well, they were like, "Hey, we'll send you a care package." I didn't even know what it was when they sent it to me, and then I finally got it, and I kind of like half realized I'm like, "Wait, maybe this isn't the best thing, right?" But what 16-year-old you just whatever. Yeah, you're 16. Like, oh, I'll try it, whatever. So I take like 5 gummies. Never been high before, but that was like I went to the hospital.
No, you did not have a good reaction.
No, no, it was pretty bad actually. Like I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. Tried to go to sleep. Time was distorted. Like, I mean,
How many milligrams was that?
I don't remember how many it was per gummy, like
It had to be
25. It was incredible. I learned afterwards. The guy was like, "You're supposed to take a quarter, like a quarter of a gummy, like the corner of a gummy." I was like,
I
I popped them like snacks. Like, I was like, what do these like things do? Like, I don't, because like 2 hours went by. I was totally fine. Like, I was working on Shakespeare for school. I was remember actually I was sitting. You know what? I was sitting and I was looking at this same monitor right here, and I remember I was totally normal, and then all of a sudden I was in the screen, like I was inside the screen, and I came back out of the screen after like I don't know what felt like an hour, and and I was like, whoa, what just happened? So anyway, I actually, but in that moment, started having visions and stuff, and I had kind of strayed away from Christianity at that time. Like I grew up Christian or academic theology. I knew what every theologian said, but I really didn't know a lot about like what Jesus said. But I had like I basically called out to help. I was like, okay, God, like I need you right now. Like I feel like I might die. Like I don't know. I might die if this is. it was the craziest feeling I've ever had. Well, anyway, somehow by the grace of God, I couldn't move off like I was like laying down in my bed. I couldn't move off my bed. I somehow managed to end up downstairs. I don't know how, where my dad was, and my dad was clearly saw it was not okay and took me to the hospital where I was. They were like, okay, we're putting you to sleep. So yeah, so that was and then I remember everything really shifted at that point going forward. I just got really hungry for seeking the truth. So whatever happened in that experience, I don't know how much was drugs, how much was the psychedelic, how much was spirit. Like I don't know, but I had a pretty wild encounter where I basically called out to help from God, and then I had this immense peace afterwards. I walked around with I had so much peace after this experience, and I got really hungry for knowing the truth. So then going into this last year, I did not do drugs again. I started going to different churches, and I'd gone to a lot of different churches, right? So I went to a different I've grown up in a very academic setting, and, I would say the the culture was much more theology, but I really didn't know I mean, I knew what Jesus said somewhat, but I didn't really know I really didn't know the depths of what the Bible actually says. So I started going to all kinds of different churches. I mean, I feel like I've been to a bunch of different I've been to, Baptist, Church of Christ, Pentecostal, Orthodox, Catholic, non-denominational, like you name it, I tried basically the whole scoop. Then by the grace of God, I met, and Stephen,
Mhm.
actually. I met Stephen, and I sat down next to him literally because of God. This crowded coffee shop in Columbia, tons of seating, no seats were available. I sat down kind of across from him one time, and I thought I need to talk to that guy. I don't know why. I need to talk to him. I need to talk to him. And you can relate to that probably. You're probably thinking, yeah, I totally had that thought. Like this guy's interesting. What is it about this guy? Then the next time I didn't listen to that voice. Next time I came in, the only seat available was on a bar seat right next to him in the entire coffee shop. Every other table in this, I mean, not even every other table, every other seat was taken. And so I sat down next to him. Obviously, he introduced himself to me. We started talking business. We started working together. Then God kind of just exploded my business. Like things started around right all around this time. I graduated high school. God just started bringing supernatural connections from all angles and just unlocking doors. It's kind of how I got involved in, Harbor Deco and Harbor and Union and the Franklin community and all that, Brentwood. And so anyway, he just pretty much brought on all those connections at the same time. And then through him, I met Nate. And Nate said, "Hey, how about you? I met Nate, and you've met Nate." And he said, "How about you come over for lunch one day?" So we go over for lunch one day. And he's like, "Hey, how about we go to the basement and pray?" I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. I don't know what heck we got to do in the basement. Like, you could just be like, hey, God, like, what's up? How you doing? you know? So we go to the basement, and he's on his knees,
God is
and
everywhere. It could be in the attic.
I know, right? I'm like, we can do this. Can we do this over the table? And he's on his knees praying. I'm like, all right, that's cool. I mean, if that's your thing, that was kind of my reaction. So I was just sitting in the chair watching this dude pray, and I'm like, okay, all right, I guess I'm gonna pray now. I got God, hi, and it's kind of like that. You still got that, guy in the sky talking kind of mentality, but he starts praying over me, and he starts praying over me, and I didn't know what tongues was at the time, right? But he starts praying over me, and he's going like, "Sugar, right?" And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, okay, I'll take the prayers. But then like I start shaking, and I start feeling this thing rising up. And it was almost like, imagine like a heart attack in your stomach, and I started shaking, and I was on the ground. I like couldn't move, and I was just violently shaking. And then I had this immense wave of peace that came over me after actually, dealt with a couple, I guess, demons or principalities or things that kind of had a root in me before. And I had never experienced anything like this. I had never experienced the charismatic world. So I thought this was crazy, but I was like, that was 100%. I don't care what anybody says. That was 100% real. I had never had anything so wild happen to me in my life. Wow, God's real, and like the spirit was real. So instantly I was just hooked on everything he was telling me. So fast forward a couple months, and I just started seeing miracles and growing with the Lord. And I mean, like my back was healed. I was going to chiropractor for years. And then one week it was healed at church. Next week I went back, and I have the back-to-back scans. I have an image of the back-to-back scans, and one's like all jacked up and the next one's perfectly aligned and nothing's wrong. Just wild stuff, right? So I've seen other people just literally like demons come out of them, just wild stuff that sounds crazy. But that started happening this last year. And so anyway, that's pretty much how I got to where I am, and that's been the thing that's really changed, I think, my business trajectory and purpose the most because now I have the desire to whatever I do in business, ultimately, I want people to have the same experience that I've had or have their own experience with the Lord, right? And really understand what the purpose of this whole thing is because if not making money is kind of lame. And I'm sure you can probably relate to that, right? I love to hear about like the last couple I don't know if you've done a podcast recently or shared your story, but in the last couple of months you've been pretty Steven kind of has come into your life and I mean really the same thing.
Is a wonderful communicator, wonderful listener, and you're right. There's something about him that makes you want to kind of open up. And his responses to me were perfect timing and perfect message, rooted in the word of Christ, not a friend or a person. So what I fell in love with was learning Jesus's words, not the word of man, deciphering that. So that's what I was attracted to because I've always questioned Christianity like most people. And I had success in business. I made a lot of money, but you just feel empty. This is why the cash flow architects is all about, investing with purpose, how to take care of your family and enjoy this ride because you only get one and then we get to go live eternity. And so when it comes to Stephen, yeah, he opened up my eyes quite a bit at a time that I think I was willing to be looking, which I think is the big thing. Like God finds those who search him out. But I think there's also something to be said about the office that we're in. Here in Franklin, this place at the factory called Harbor and Union, it's all entrepreneurs, and most of them are God fearing entrepreneurs. I remember the first time I walked in here, I thought, dude, this has a vibe. This is just a different type of office building. It's not filled with 60-year-old guys walking around with, as I have a golf shirt on, but with golf shirts and pleated khaki pants. It was like cool, younger people, and all of them are entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And most of them, the true majority, believe in something bigger than what we can see in front of us. And so I was immediately curious there, like what I got to be missing something. And at the time of my life, bro, you said it once: God will provide, and then God takes away, and then God will multiply. And I was in that God taking away season. There's just been a lot of things with health, with family, financial transactions, multiple transactions, business relationships. Everything's just like, what are we doing?
It
And
was
it
like
just
subtracting. Yeah,
subtracting, dude, and everything's like, what's important? What matters here? And it was perfect timing for me. So yeah, it's been a growth year, that's for sure, but a difficult one on a lot of levels as well.
yeah,
So yeah, but we're in a great spot here with people around us in this office.
for sure.
Life here. Let's talk about this really quick. So faith and business. Stephen will tell you that Christ was the ultimate businessman, and
I never heard anything like what Steven had said before, and then I go and I'm like, "Wait, no, this can't be backed up by the Bible. No way." And then,
uh,
you look at the Bible and you're like, "Oh, wow, everything he's saying is actually in there."
it's crazy. And it's attractive because you're like, gosh, I'm not doing this alone. There's a bigger purpose here. And it's like,
Wait,
literally,
Jesus doesn't hate, like, that I like money and that I'm trying to go out and be
because there's
successful
churches out
and,
there
like,
that tell you
make
that,
deals and
yeah, because there's churches out there that'll tell you God doesn't want wealth and that, you're supposed to give everything away. And it's like, well, I've always believed that you cannot give anything away until you have something to give. I really believe that. This is
Yeah.
my gripe with professors or teachers or, heaven forbid, social workers that through college to learn these things and then give away. They don't have anything to give, and they're taking away the experience of the person who's receiving the gift of going through those hard times to figure out how to get it for themselves. They're ruining that experience for them. So, but anyway, I forget where I was going with that.
Well, it's just that most of modern Christianity teaches that, um and I wouldn't say most. There's a good chunk of modern Christianity that's rooted in all kinds of things that's not around Jesus. And then you actually look at who the character of Jesus is and you start to have a relationship with him,
It's totally
then you realize, whoa, this isn't at all the Christianity that I thought it was.
no.
This isn't the neat and tidy, you sit there in your pew. This isn't the neat and tidy, hey, we don't talk about this thing, but then we gossip behind their back, right? This isn't the, hey, money's bad and you need to be it's not that those are just cultural sects that have grown with time within the actual, religion. But you look at religion and you look at Jesus and you're like, wait, Jesus talks about not abolishing religion, but abolishing the cultural, abolishing the religious,
False prophet.
the do-gooders of the world.
Here's a
I mean,
question
look at
for
the
you, because
character. Yeah.
I think this is kind of a difficult question, but if you needed a second to think about it, feel free. But how do you define being spirit led versus just saying that you have values, like in business in particular?
Well, this is,
'Cause we can't talk about wife and kids. You know what I'm saying?
I can't talk about wife and kids yet.
Yeah. But in business, yeah. How would you?
We can talk about business. Hey,
Yeah,
maybe in a few years we can come back here and we can talk about in life and wife and kids, right?
that's right.
Probably the kids like later than sooner, but still like not too far in the distant future,
Yeah.
ultimately. So there's like this is gonna get kind of real, but I mean, before most everyone says we have a purpose. Every business in the world says we have a purpose. We live in a world where it's culturally Christian, right? So culturally, we're like, there's a book over there. We believe in this book, and we line up with, and there's God and the Lord, and right, you have like the cultural aspects of. But you look at how we got here, and it's because we had men and women ultimately that really followed the person, that really followed, that really actually, read the book. They their life, they were actually transformed by the message, right? And so their life action, and they were spirit led. So they actually, you know, they had the Holy Spirit, and I'm getting blown up right now. They had the Holy Spirit, and that would guide their actual actions. And so it looks like that in my daily life now. I didn't When people said the Holy Spirit, I was like, oh yeah, it's like that occasional conviction you get. You get some kind of conviction. Well, we want to, do good. We want to give to charity. We don't want our business to be all about money. We don't want to take as much profit as we can. There's certain cultural things that we say that's being spirit led, that's being God led. We're a values driven company, right? So it's essentially just a kind of a cultural cornball word for we have some level of moral standard in our company. It ultimately doesn't really matter. I mean, okay, if unless you're really being led by the Lord, it kind of is just okay. That's cool. But what I care about, and so is just actually being led by the Spirit. So for me, what that looks like is very different than what it looked like in the past. For me, I was like, yeah, I'm values driven. I'm a Christian, and you could probably relate to some of this culture. You can kind of probably relate and see this culturally. Now, what it looks like when I wake up in the morning is going, should I text like God? Should I text this person? God, how should I make this business decision? And I asked for, I've done this thing recently, the last couple of months, where I say, okay, Jesus, you're my CEO. Like, Jesus, you're my CEO. I'm going to listen to you. I'm not the CEO. And it takes you out of the driver's seat, because frequently, okay, you get all the anxiety, you get worried about the problems. There's deals that you get like kind of like FOMO on clothes. You get into your worldly mindset, and then you start falling into all these traps as entrepreneurs that we deal with that are because we're behind the driver's seat, we're driving this high powered car and we're not able to control it on our own. And so the better way to do it, what I found is way more effective in my daily life, is going, okay, Jesus, do I go to this place or do I go to that place today? Even whatever my calendar says, should I go to this meeting? Should I not go to this meeting? I even did it with this podcast. Am I supposed to be on this podcast? Like that. I ask everything, God, and I found the outcomes are much better. Sometimes they're more difficult too, because sometimes God's like, no, I don't want you to do this thing. And you're like, okay, well, hold up. But I already have this lined up and I can't say no to this person, or I can't, and you pull up all the I can'ts. I can't for whatever reason. I can't do this for whatever reason. Oh, well, I kind of need this thing, God. Like I really need this deal. And he's like, nope, you don't need it. I'm gonna provide the next. I got something better lined up for you. And that's probably what you've seen now in what you're doing. I'm sure, is well, what about this thing? What about But what? Oh, we're trying to do this one. And then the Lord's like, Matt, how about you just start doing conferences? Like,
Yeah.
how about you just start bringing people into the room and strategizing with them?
Yeah.
And it's
Years.
walked you into a much better place.
You
So it's
know,
really the same thing in my life that I've started doing, and it's much more effective.
I think that clarity is something that a lot of people lack. I lacked it for a long time. I probably still lack it to an extent. In the financial world, things can be fairly shallow. In the financial world, working with other advisors who the bottom line, the rate of return, the dollar amount, all these things that are superficial that people like talking about, at the end of the day, isn't what people care about. At least the people that I want to work with. Some people, the saddest thing, dude. So I've done this for 15 years. The saddest thing is to talk to a 75-year-old. I have a text yesterday from a not a client, someone I've been talking to for a couple months. I want to know the return. You're 73, your health isn't great, you have kids and grandkids, and you're still worried about, your 300,000 being 310,000. That's the concern. It's such a shallow way to look at it. So that doesn't drive me anymore at all. Like you said, it's getting a room full of people that believe the same thing. It has a heck of a lot more impact for everybody in the room, and it ends up trickling down to the bottom line. Profit isn't bad. It's just not the motivator.
Well, you're bringing agreement. We actually had that happen last night. We actually got together with one of the guys at the office, and he was dealing with a lot of stress, and he was dealing with like a lot of, really anxiety around his business. And we just invited him to our prayer night last night. And, we sat over there and prayed for him. And then God started giving each person two, no, actually, I was the only person who knew him well. The three other people in the room didn't know him, and they gave him prophetic words that lined up so crazy with his life that he was like, whoa, he just started laughing because he just was like, wow, this is how do you, like, God is going to take care of this. How did you know that? Right? God is going to do that. Well, I don't have to worry about this thing. And it's like, God just reads your mind. Right. And it's just crazy because it's that power of agreement, right? So when you bring into a set of beliefs, there are cultural limiting beliefs. There's a cultural limiting belief of where opportunity cost doesn't exist. Like that's a business belief. There's a business belief right now that there is, the Ramsey model is save, 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 save. It's good. It's good. And like, do that, like save, save, save. But there's also, you also have, it's like looking at this one extreme and going save, but then you also look at this other extreme and you go risk. And so it's like the answer is not on one side of the coin or the other, because you just either be gambling or you'd be like stowing away your, $20 an hour salary, which both ways aren't going to get you. But there's some kind of balance here in the middle where, you're not gambling your money on it in Vegas, but you're not stowing away your $20 an hour salary, praying you become a
Right.
millionaire by putting it in a high yield savings.
Right.
When you come into the different atmospheres and you bring a new belief in and you bring in agreement with it, that's where it really becomes powerful because people are going to kind of conform to what's around them, right? In Tennessee, there's cultural things that you've probably seen and you see everybody conforming to because you can kind of take that from an outsider and see, coming from Michigan, right? And you can
Yeah.
see and you can kind of see.
Absolutely. And so what's amazing where we are in Franklin, I mean, it's no secret in the last 5 years, Nashville's like doubled in size. And the people leaving those states, the other states are ones that had first, the ability to. So they weren't tied to something that kept them somewhere they didn't want to be. Usually it's political or family oriented, but they're going to get out of those situations they don't want to be in. So they have the ability to move, but then they took action. So what you end up having is this cool little community of Franklin, Brentwood, Nashville. It's like a melting pot of entrepreneurs that
It's awesome.
think, you know what, this world's bigger than what we see. And I like making money, but that's not why I do everything. And it's
Right.
like, holy smokes, dude. And all of a sudden you're surrounded by all these great people. People go, would you ever move back to Michigan? You couldn't pay me to move back to Michigan.
I know, right? There's no amount of money.
My
We just
wife
talked
says the
about
same
that.
thing.
Hey,
Born and
yeah.
raised in Michigan. She and her family's there. She's like, I wouldn't go back. There's no reason to, besides family. But family can come here.
I wasn't spending much time in Franklin, like in our community, up until around a little over a year ago. And at first, I was like, "Yeah, I mean, Tennessee's cool. I like Nashville. Nashville's a cool city." But then I started spending time in the Franklin community, and I went, "I never want to leave this place. I want a home in West Haven, and I want to live here for life." Because you're right. I think it's a mix of God bringing people, and then people also, seeing opportunity, and it has a really interesting mix. There's a cultural aspect here, but then we're within a subculture too, where it's people that are genuinely devoted. There's a cultural Christianity kind of around us, but you deal with a lot of people that really hear the voice of God and they follow it. And so a lot of people have supernaturally followed the voice to Franklin.
I
And
have a friend down the street, came from LA. Family has extremely famous ties. Like if I said the name, you'd be like, really? So like
really, that's
really
awesome.
famous people. And they came here without ever being here before. They maybe came here for a golf course or the community that they saw online. And now they moved here and they're like, I would never leave. This is better. The vibe here, the people that you meet, the way they treat you, the business, everything about this area is totally different than what was in LA. And now look at the stuff that's coming out with All the
I've
photos.
heard that story probably more than a dozen times. I
Dude,
mean,
my
it's
street,
just it's everyone.
we just built a new house in West Haven, and it's literally California, Chicago, Michigan, Michigan, California, Chicago, California,
Yep.
Chicago, California.
West Haven is literally a nice refugee camp. I mean, it's just
And the
it's like
kind
a
of
refugee
refugees
camp,
that
and you guys
actually
have
make
your
the
own
community
shops and
better.
coffee shop, and like it's unfair. You guys get to walk down to your like coffee shop.
Yeah.
You don't have
We'll
to
take the
drive
golf
anywhere.
cart.
But you just take the golf cart, right? I see so many golf carts. Oh my gosh.
Got the golf cart before we bought the house because we knew where we were going.
You knew you were going to West Haven. You knew you were
Yeah.
going to be driving down to like the Kroger and taking the golf cart to get the groceries.
And the kids love that part too. It's like a whole life experience. They're going to grow up talking about that for the rest of their lives. I remember taking the golf cart with dad to go to Kroger's and get a pumpkin for Halloween.
You remember West Haven? It's like, yeah.
Real quick, so I want to get into your business here a little bit too, because
Yeah.
AI, let's talk about AI for a second. We had a great conversation there, but with AI, there's so much good and so much bad that can be done. I want to understand what you do for clients because it's very custom, which I think only a year and a half in, you've done a lot, you've had a lot of impact. You haven't really got a niche necessarily that you're focused on. You kind of help a lot of companies. So I want to talk about that. But do you see, I've heard you talk about this in the past. AI is not the hero, right? You don't, the job is not, your role is not to replace people and their jobs. AI should be a tool to make everybody elevate their ability, income, impact, all of it. So how do you see AI moving forward in the business world? Because of the circle you run in, because I still know a lot of people that if you say AI, they just
I think it's because I've gotten in different companies, and the companies I've worked with have been really unique. I would say around 6 months ago, every company I stepped into, it was like there was massive resistance. Now I still get massive resistance in IT. IT guys hate me. They don't like me. They really don't like me. I'm like a young kid. I'm telling them I'm bringing the next big revolutionary technology, and I tell them that I can do massive, basically bring massive results and innovation. And so they don't I just was listening to something the other day, one of the guys in Franklin, and he basically said, he's on the marketing side. He said, whenever new revolutionary technologies come, there's there's people, it's revolutionary technology when people love it, and there's people that hate it every time. Every time and if they don't hate it, then there has to be both aspects for it to be revolutionary enough and legit enough, because they didn't hate it. There's either no actual worry that it's going to do any significant impact,
yeah.
or people don't believe in it enough, so um it it's one of those. It has to be both of those things, so it's good. But I think we're entering in the phase where people are like, all right, I guess we're forced to adopt this thing. Let's figure it out. It's here. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out what we can do. And yeah, everyone does have like an AI is the hero coming in to run my business for me. Every AI is AI is gonna, it's agentic AI, right? AGI, right? There's all these terms thrown around. It's hype terms, right? You look at like have you seen Claudebot, right? Like the most recent one. Everybody's got these new things that they say, oh my gosh, this is incredible, right? And so the AI hype, kind of bandwagon, and everybody's racing towards AGI. So whether we get to AGI or not, um, I think most people don't quite really know, even the most brilliant AI developers. We don't really know how far it will go. In my opinion, my current opinion is, even if we do reach AGI, it's going to solve a lot of problems in our business. It's going to change.
What's
It's going to
AGI?
change artificial general intelligence. It's what open AI is trying to get to. It's what Anthropic. It's what all these big AI companies are trying to get to. They're trying to get to this point where they reach a place in AI where they don't have to tell it, do this thing, do this thing, do this thing, train this thing on this thing. Like, it doesn't have to be so specific. What we deal with right now is called artificial narrow intelligence. So imagine right now AI has imagine right now, if you picture your screen, and AI has like a little, hover on this part of your screen, you can see one little bit of it, but it doesn't get the whole picture, right? It can see maybe your like eyeball, right? But it can't see the entire screen, your whole setup, and the fact that we're doing a podcast right now. It doesn't have the same contextual understanding because it's the way it's designed. It's limited in its nature. So they're trying to get to the point where AI can see the entire picture, where AI has such intelligence that it can be on par or greater than a human, not just in narrow categories, but across the board. Meaning, and it has the capabilities in which to act and reason on them. So meaning, I could drop AI in my computer right now, and it could go and figure out, with probably the same degree of intelligence as you, how to go make $1 million on stuff, or maybe not even to that great of an extent. That's one view of AGI. Another view would be, I can drop it on there and it can go and figure this task out for me. right? So I could give it a set of objectives and it has the same level of intelligence that maybe I or you have, or, the average human. And so it would be able to go and determine and do fully functioning end-to-end tasks. So like for you, it might be maybe you have to go and set up, and maybe you have to go set up a conference that you have to do. It could be able to go and get your speaking gig, get your engagement, reach out to tons of companies, maybe start some marketing campaign, right? It would be able to go end to end and do all these things. That's where everyone's trying to get to, but that's not, in my opinion, it's not as great. Just spending a lot of time with these models, it's not as great. It's getting there, but it's not as great as you might think. And so the way to really utilize um, AI at the moment without listening to all the hype is, in my opinion, what I have seen work best based on the companies I've worked with is it is getting rid of mundane tasks. It is getting rid of cognitive load. And really, the four pillars that I focus on as an agency is things that cost time, quality, speed, and money. Those are the four pillars. If it costs one of those things, and you say, and then you start with a list, you almost put it down a list and you prioritize. So you say, what are things? Okay, I'm going to think of things that are causing me most complex time. Okay, right now, custom system builds. Time, there's QA, there's all these processes. Okay, another high one up there is legal contracts back and forth. It takes a long time. The sales process is long because high ticket builds, custom lead prioritization. So, which lead should I focus on? There's tons of people reaching out. I have so much noise around me. I don't know which projects to do. It's so much of a mess. Some organizational capacity of my infrastructure. So I start going down the list of here's the different problems I face as a business. And if each one of those could be solved, it would allow massive breakthrough in my business. So maybe for you, it's big speaking gigs, right? Maybe for you, it's you need people who are serious. Maybe you get a lot of tire kickers. I get a lot of tire kickers in my industry. I'm sure you get a lot of tire
Well, in the
kickers, right?
financial world, everyone's using ChatGPT as a Google search engine and or Google still, and a lot of people do what's popular, and that's what ends up setting them up for failure. So that's why I work with entrepreneurs who know that they are themselves the biggest asset, and then we just complement that with everything that we do.
And that's an example of using AI to get to understand cognitive load because it can't understand it all on its own. But if paired with your understanding, you can work through a lot of issues probably today that you have in your business. But because you have maybe an unawareness of the right tools that currently are available or the right awareness of how to talk to it, there are certain problems that you're not able to solve yet that are in, that are up here that haven't been put down into paper. So that's kind of like one side of the coin. Then the other side of the coin is you could call it like the industrial revolution of the internet. So, obviously industrial revolution came around, changed the way technology functioned, changed the way that things were engineered, and changed the quality, ultimately changed the life by a major degree. We're talking, horse and buggy to and farming to living, I mean, less than 100 years later, living in a home with a car and a fridge and AC and in a suburban neighborhood. Like we're talking massive, massive shifts in the way culture is done, as a whole, as a generalization. So I think we're dealing with a similar, not, I don't know if it's to the same degree, but we're dealing with a degree of shift also probably that large. In the future, I don't know if people are going to look at the internet, if they're going to call it the age of the internet, right? Or if it's going to all get lumped into the age of intelligence, right? So like the internet has allowed us to enter the digital landscape of communication. And now we have enabled intelligence to be a layer into that ecosystem, right? So imagine basically the machines are getting capable. And so while we haven't hit robotics and stuff yet, the things that it's really focusing on that list and what are the things I can train AI to do, right? What are the things I can train AI to do in my business? Like right after this, we're going to talk about different things in your business. We're going to take a look at that. I'm sure there's tons of things you could go on the list where it's like, wow, if I had essentially this, it's an overused word, but turnkey system, right? I would be able to have breakthrough in my business. And every single system unlocks that new level of breakthrough. So the scale of the technology we're talking about is pretty massive, but it's also able to be utilized. Number one, sure, AI research, that's great. I think you should be using Perplexity, you should be using ChatGPT, you should be using all the tools, you should be using Manus, you should be using Claude, right? You should be using all the tools. You should be using it for cognitive load. That's a big one, and that's separate too. But that's the more intelligent side. That's the slower working side. But that's the side that's ultimately going to be. It's more complicated, but that will really change things fundamentally. And then we're talking about intelligence within operations. So intelligence do it within procedures. So AI does my taxes for me. AI does this repeatable system. AI automates the process of me going and filing things for different companies. And that's the example of mostly what we're building. Now, I did just buy data and so I'm actually working on building. I built a lot of decision making cognitive load type systems for companies, and so I'm working on actually, or mainly for myself, and mainly as part of a functioning unit within a system. But what I'm working on doing is actually implementing that too. But the more short term use is getting AI to do mundane tasks, getting AI to, and then progressively teaching it to do more complex things. So start with the most annoying things that waste your time, and then spend the 20 hours to automate it. And then once you spend that 20 hours to automate it, you buy back the next, you know, 20 a month, which pays for itself in dividends.
About AI?
I I brought data algorithm.ai
Data algorithm dot AI.
and data out. So I bought those two domains because I'm planning on putting a branch of I built essentially a network of information that allows you to feed all information in through your business. And it lets you capture all this information, display it into a graph network of connected web information that's all determined by AI. And then what you can then do is you can build a software layer that makes real-time decision making. So let's say you have a meeting. So like Limitless. I have like a Limitless device, right? I think I maybe told you about this, right? It records your conversations in real life. And then I've tapped into that, connected it to this data graph, Slack messages, docs, spreadsheets, meetings. So you can imagine you absorb all this information. It's like Big Brother. It's freaky, right? But you absorb all this information into a massive system that sorts through all this data. It sorts through the noise because I mean, if you what's really interesting is Kevin O'Leary just did a podcast, and that's like, I mean, a billionaire just talked about how the most important thing right now in business that's preventing entrepreneurs from being successful is their signal to noise ratio. Meaning, how much stupid crap are you doing for every valuable task you're doing? You probably do a lot of stupid crap during the day and you don't realize it. You're not making the right decisions on the things. Okay, you actually really need to follow up with this lead. You actually really need to go build this thing. You actually really need to go speak at this conference. But instead, you're like, filling out this form that you should have, paid somebody else to do, or you're doing stupid, and that's probably a lot of your day. And
Yeah.
so the more signal to noise ratio you're doing, he talked about the and this is a concept that I've started to dig into and really get. So if you could build a system or build an algorithm that has all kinds of understanding of your business, you can build a really powerful engine that essentially shows what your signal is out of the noise. And here's what you're supposed to be doing. And for corporate companies, it's here's the decisions we're supposed to be making. So they have tons of this. They lose context on meetings. So they're probably spending, I mean, half their time's getting wasted or more. So if you imagine, you double the rate of your productivity, imagine if you duplicated yourself and you have two of you. Well, you can do that just by making the right decisions. But most people spend all day doing tons of stuff that doesn't matter.
This is so exciting because of so many opportunities that don't even exist today that are literally going to explode over the next 2 or 3 years.
So Palantir is already doing this, right? So Palantir is already essentially doing this data algorithm about AI, maybe in different capacities too. They're doing it for more, for some freaky observation and stuff. But like the goal is like be Palantir for private companies in terms of data decision making. So that's why I'm investing in going after data algorithms too, because that's only going to get more popular. And then right now all the hype is automation, right? But ultimately, automation is going to start to look more complex. And imagine a system. So a lot of the systems I'm working with. So I work with a couple different verticals. Um, I work with insurance companies. I work with like benefits companies. I work with commercial real estate. I've worked with two healthcare companies, but I don't particularly love that space as much. It's a little more difficult. But the big place I'm investing in is law firms, and the law firm door is really opening up for me big time. That's kind of the avenue I'm pursuing, is because there's lots of these processes, right? And so my goal is to do this across different industries, and then really build a collection of systems that solve processes end to end for certain verticals. And so I think there's massive opportunity for doing that. And I think if it's not just valuable for me who knows how to do it for other businesses, it's valuable even if you could do this at a smaller scale for yourself. I mean, you were talking, it can have massive impact in the work that you're doing.
We're
It's
focused on principle-based planning like I do, principle-based strategies. And then after we understand the principles, we plug in the avatar of the consumer, that entrepreneur. That's exactly bottleneck, is helping people make those decisions. Because once the principles are in place and understood, we've created a framework for financial decision making for the rest of our lives. To wrap this up, though, with you today, there's two major topics that I think have come on the forefront for a lot of people in the last 2 years: AI and God. When Charlie got shot last fall, I had just started in this new office. And my gosh, I was Dude, I was distraught I canceled my meetings for the rest of the day. It was like, it hit me hard. And that was like when the tumultuous time in my life. And I'm like, why is this hitting me so hard? I lost my twin brother earlier last year, and Charlie hit me equally, if not harder, than losing my twin brother, just because I thought he put so much good into the world. I don't know why exactly, but there's two things that we're talking about: God and then AI, which we talked about people, looking up to a false God. AI has a lot of potential for both good and evil. And as a Christian, one who believes the word of Jesus, how do you see these two topics commingling?
I've had a lot of conversations about these, actually. It's something I found a lot about as I'm kind of getting more involved with working with Christian ministries, organizations, that kind of thing. Especially also where I stand on a belief perspective. From my perspective, AI is not even a correct term analogy for the word. It's just what got popular. I do like machine learning better. I think that there's intelligence is like it seems to be a fabric based on what people have uncovered with AI. It's almost revealed intelligence in a new way we've never discovered before. It makes, because you could argue that that artificial intelligence seems sentient. I mean, if you talk to Claude, it can express emotions, it can express, so it's like, well, what makes it not, what makes it sentient or not? Well, the difference is because we have a soul and a spirit, right? That's the difference that makes humans, that's what makes them different from animals, which have some level of intelligence. That's what makes it different from, that's what makes it different from from all other, the creatures and the fabric, because you can look at the trees and you can see there's life in there and there's intelligence too. You can literally read the intelligence on them. I was having a conversation with like a brilliant AI developer friend. He's working on creating, some of the next greatest large language models that exist. And this is how he understands intelligence. And it seems to be accurate. And so that's the way I see intelligence. So I think it's very interesting that we are able to harness intelligence, right? The gifts that God has given us to do these amazing things with our business and to make us more impactful and to do this, doing as a culture is really cool. I think the people that are the open AIs in the world, this is also where I differ in perspective from this friend. The open AIs in the world and the AI companies in this world are essentially transhumanists. They would like AI to become God. And so this isn't a theory. This is genuinely this is the outcomes. When you go and you listen to these people speak, this is the outcomes that they desire this is the outcomes they desire in the world. And so the people who are building some of these things are not great people. They're evil people. They would not like good outcomes. They would essentially like us. I mean, you think of all the end times movies and all the end times books, and you think about that, and that's essentially what they would like, kind of like a 1984 scenario where there's technology isn't harnessed for good, it's harnessed as a control layer. I mean, you look at Palantir too and what the government's trying to do. Everybody views this as an opportunity to harness intelligence to get power. And so the problem is not whether AI is bad or not. I would say whoever is creating AI can create it with poor intentions or good intentions. We have figured out how to, as a society, we have figured out how to turn random predictions into intelligible thought process. It's really incredible if you think about it. I mean, we took all the data of what's out there of intelligent thought, then we turned it into a prediction algorithm that can predict the next word. And with neural networks and then reinforcing their correct patterns, they've trained things that are more intelligent than like lots of people. I mean, really, it's really so people saying AI is the Antichrist. AI is, I'm not saying that AI will not be used in those kind of weird end times way.
You couldn't convince me that it won't be.
I think it most definitely will be. And I think it's dangerous. Is it a good thing that we have this? I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a people problem that we have this. Just like everything. Is it bad that we develop technologies and guns, right? Probably the same thing. We can now shoot people from, half a mile away with snipers. Like it's incredible the power that we have. We can now have nuclear bombs that, you could argue nuclear bombs is going to be the end of the world. Everybody's going to blow each other up, right? And so it is very dangerous that people have more capability now, but it's really their human nature which causes people to have evil desires and for them to want to control the world, or they want to use something, or they have these weird freak desires to have AI be some kind of god or to regulate society in weird ways. That is I think that's going to be apparent in every technology that we create. And so the question for the for the entrepreneurs, for those who desire good. And I know people who are fighting this fight on the good side. I know believing AI companies that are taking up market share, that are really growing, that are doing it not for the goal to have authority over it, right? They don't want AI to have authority over men, right? They're not going to let this intelligence fabric essentially override us, right? But it gets a little more freaky the more you start looking into robots and stuff. That is a scarier end, and I don't know how I feel about that yet.
Optimus is coming out next year. Elon's robot Optimus is coming out next year, they say.
Really? I haven't heard that. That's incredible.
But if it comes out next year, I give it 2 years before people start getting married to robots.
Yeah, that's just yeah, I bet so.
Well,
How long before we have like AI rights? Like how long before AI lives matter is an actual concept? Or I mean, I'm just being serious. Like I'm being serious, not trying to play a pun off the but I'm just mean how long before we have AI human rights matter, where they're comparing it like, oh, AI and humans, right? Like and there's like AI, AI, racism or whatever it is, like, to hate AI robots. Yeah, machinism, whatever it is, right? You hate it. You hate machines for the sake of, how long before we have that? I mean, I think there is a real possibility that those are real issues we face in our day, like in our day and age.
I know.
I think it is a real possibility that these are things that we talk about, 5-10 years down the line.
Yeah.
How are we going to deal with it? I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing that we've used intelligence, but I think that evil people are quickly going to do what evil people have always done with intelligence, with machinery, with technology, with innovation. And now we are reaching I don't know if we're reaching the pinnacle, but we're reaching a very critical point where we have made something that can think for itself. And that's very dangerous in the hands of the wrong people. So the question is, there's really not much we can do about it. I mean, you look at the Bible and the prophecies that start to come true, you can clearly see that we're living in a day and time where, we don't know how close we are to the end of everything, but that's coming at some point. So, but all we can do in the meantime is go, where have we been positioned? In what time frame? Now we have been positioned in the age of intelligence, right? And so, we've been positioned where we have electricity and we have modern conveniences and now we have the internet and now we have robots and and we have intelligent, computers. And that's just the world that's the world we're coming into. And so the question is what is, each person's individual calling and individual purpose for this. And so, it's here. Bad guys are going to use it. Let's pray that good guys use it too. Let's pray that good people use it to do more good in the world. That's the mission of what I'm here to do, is work with good businesses that can help do more good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I know you cannot convince me that evil is not going to be using AI. I just pray that it'll also be used for good. And it takes action for that to happen. And it's going to be used regardless. How do we get in front of it and use it for good? And so it's people like you that we need to get to the front lines, dude. So kudos for you for not going to college, not necessarily listening to mom and dad or your friends and teachers that scoffed at your ideas. But I think you have the ability to be a thought leader here in the next 5 to 10 years as well.
I appreciate it. I think God's going to put me and position me in the right place like he always has.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is called faith.
That is what it is. I didn't have much of it not that long ago, but now I have it.
Well, I'm going to make sure to put all of your socials and contact information below this episode. So check out the links. You can get more of Gray. Make sure you follow him. He's going to have a lot of insight in terms of AI and how to use it for good to compound your business. Clarity allows for compounding, and you can get in front of this trend for good or for evil. There's not much in between. So getting clarity on that good, I think, is going to be pretty important over the next few years.
Well, I'm not on Instagram or most of the socials for the sake of my soul, but you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I check it periodically, and then I'm thinking about potentially starting a YouTube channel here at some point, and I'm definitely going to be doing more podcasts, doing more speaking. I have some speaking things coming up, and so you could definitely. I'll make sure there's a way that people can try.
Yeah, I'm going to make you start the YouTube channel and just document what you're doing, not creating new content, but document your journey. I think it would be wonderful. People want to watch it. So we'll make sure that by the time this launches, your YouTube channel will also be available. So now you have a timeline. Exactly. Love it. Great. Thank you so much for being here, bro.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, follow along on YouTube and Spotify, all the major podcast stuff. And until next time, keep crushing.
Perfect. Talk to you guys later.